So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I'm just looking around at the world as I always do and just looking at how there's no responsibility, there's no redemption anymore, and everyone is put in a particular category without understanding why things are done to certain people and why things are not done for certain people. And this is what I'm talking about. I was watching a video, and then I'll get into what I really wanted to talk about. I was watching a video that came out 3 months ago about a bunch of young black men who were on a train in Boston. And it was only a 1 minute and 47-second clip. And they titled it that a racist assault on a Boston train. And the young black men who looked like they were probably 14-ish, 15-ish, they were the perpetrators of allegedly of this so-called racist assault. But the thing is that they did not put their hands on the individual. You get what I'm saying? They didn't put their hands on the individual. And assumingly, or I presume, there were no charges filed against these very, very bad actors. That's what I'm going to call them. Very bad actors. And this is why I think this bullshit is possibly on cap and that it was orchestrated, because the person who was victimized by them, because they were harassing her, but they did not physically assault her. But the title of the NBC News video, is very misleading, because I thought they had actually physically assaulted her, but it doesn't make a difference. They were in the wrong. They were harassing her. They were harassing her and other passengers on the subway. This is why I don't get on the subway. I Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft. That's what I do. Okay, because I don't drive. So I Uber and Lyft. I can afford to do that at least. Or if my friend, he drives, he takes me where I want to go to, whenever I need him to, because he drives, he got a car. Here is my issue, though. I was reading the comments under the video. Now, the young woman that was being harassed by these very, very untrained young men, she was an Asian woman. She looked to be maybe Korean, maybe Chinese, I don't know. And she was afraid because they kept harassing her for no reason. They on the train fucking with people. I get it. And they were wrong for doing that motherfucking shit. And there should have been some type of consequence. But what's interesting, it was no consequence for them. There was no consequence. Now they have the footage. So I don't know what happened. This was 3 months ago. So I don't know what happened, subsequently after that. But what bothers me is the comments that I'm reading, I'm assuming from non-black people. And some of them are saying, well, black people are never held accountable for what they do. And, I'm glad to see that this is being exposed, how black people are racist and all these other things. And you know what? Some black people can be. I agree. But here's the problem with these statements that I'm saying. They don't understand the spell work that's really involved in this. I've had to deal with young, unstable black men like this my entire life. Let me rephrase that. When I was growing up, these were the type of black men that I've had to deal with, going to school and everything else. This is a generational thing. And they're not targeting her. Well, maybe consciously, but subconsciously, they target people. These types of people, they target people who they view are on an upper are who are on an upper echelon of society more so than them because they're jealous. And it doesn't really matter what your skin color really is, but we live in a racially charged, racially sensitive culture and society. But I was reading the comments and people were saying, oh, black people never are held accountable for this and black people are never held accountable for that. And what I wanted to say was that you all are only looking at half of the pie. You're not looking at the other half of the pie because it's covered by ice cream, so you can't see all of it, child, okay? And that sounds good right now, some pie and ice cream. But you're not looking at the whole picture. Black people do get held accountable for the things that they do. Black people do have responsibility for the things that they do. But those types of young men who were on that train harassing that young woman, they are not that type. Those type, they are not held accountable for what they do. They don't have any responsibility for what they do. And their parents are probably in my age bracket, and they probably did the exact same thing when they were 13, 14, and 15 years old. The mothers and the fathers, they probably did exactly the same thing. So it's not that black people don't get held accountable. No, they pick and choose which black people they want to hold accountable. If you have any type of echelon or boule energy with you, and when I say boule, I'm not talking about what they're saying on YouTube about the boule and all that. No. I'm talking about the real boule. See, the boule that they have now are parvenus. They're imposters. They're parvenus. They're not real boule people. If you want to know what a parvenu is, go and look at my video that I did about parvenus the other day. The people that they're calling boule right now are the same type of young men that we saw on this train trying to attack and harass this young woman. So when I hear people say that, oh no, black people are never held accountable, no, if they figure out that you have some type of echelon to you or some type of class to you, they will try to tear you down. And they will try to beat you down and break you and destroy you. Even people in your family. Even people in your family, if they think that you have some type of dignity and respect about you, they will try to tear you down. My aunts and uncles tried to do it to me. They tried to do it to me. Because even though my father wasn't shit, my mother, she did the best she could do, but she wasn't the best mother. But my father, he wasn't shit. He was on drugs, even though I came from that. But God or the Spirit saw me and had grace upon me and said, no, you're going to be different. And then my great grandmother, even with all her imperfections, because she wasn't perfect either, but it was mainly the Spirit and grace that made me not go down the same path as my aunts, my uncles, my father, and even some of my siblings on my father's side. I have a sibling and he and I have the first same government name, but he's on drugs. He's on PCP. He has a lot of problems. I'm the oldest sibling of, on my mother's side and my father's side. I'm the oldest sibling. I'm older than my brother that my mother had, and I'm older than the kids that my father had, I found out. I'm the oldest. I'm the elder, okay? Well, I guess you could say that. But these people are imposters. They have removed the original boule and the original bougie uppity types of people. And that doesn't mean that you look your nose down. That's what it's become now because there are people in place There are people in positions and in place now that really don't understand what it means to be upper echelon. Being upper echelon, truthfully, had really nothing to do with having, an excess of money per se, even though that came along with it. It was about how you carried yourself and how you were able to manifest. That is what it was really about. But then it became more about excess greed and looking your nose down at other people and trying to break other people and trying to tear down other people. And that is what these hooligans on this train were doing. And it has nothing to do with them being black per se. And I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you, but in most cases or in some cases, these types of hooligans, they live in the suburbs. Their parents work government jobs. They live a pretty good life. But this is the type of stuff that they do. Because there was a transfer of wealth and prosperity through spell work and trickery that removed the original people of the Boule system, not the system, but not a system, but of the Boule energy, and replaced it with ghetto, ratchet, disgusting people who really did not belong in those places. Let's have a conversation. So it really had nothing. So no, when these people are commenting, let me just say this. When these people are commenting that black people are never held accountable, you need to stop thinking in terms of race all the time. I know we live in a racially charged society, but it's not about race. It's about class, position, and echelon. It's not about race. Because that fucking dentist that did that root canal on my tooth that was so nasty to me, he was an Asian man. And he would be considered low class in the Asian culture. I think he's Vietnamese, if I'm not mistaken. He would be considered low class from what I understand and from what I've researched, listening to other people and their encounters. But it has nothing to do with his race. It has to do with the fact that he's just a low class person. So black people do get held accountable. But the black people that they always want to hold accountable are the black people who are oftentimes responding to shit like this that happened on that Boston train. Let's have a conversation. I remember when I was in junior high school back in the 1990s, early 90s, and I had to deal with hooligans just like this. But the problem was, like it is today, the school system was designed to, everybody has a number. And the school system or the school district, they got money from the government to have a certain amount of students in school. Everyone knows that. Grants and all of that, even in the public school system, they got money. So when they had problem students, like these individuals more than likely that are on this train, when they had problem students, they did not expel them. They let them stay in school. But wait a minute. He just attacked another student. Well, we have to be understanding. But wait a minute. He's selling drugs. Well, he's still intelligent. But so you're going to risk the education, the comfort, the safety and stability of students who really want to learn for one student who's a violent, unstable, crazy, bullying harasser. This is what they've created this over the past 30 years or so. They've created this. So it's not about somebody not taking accountability. The ones they want to break down are people like me and you. They want to break us down because we have a certain amount of upper echelon boule energy within us. They can tell from our birthdays and the numbers that follow us. They know. So they try to tear down certain people, and it has nothing to do with your skin color. So when I was reading those comments, I can tell that those people are really operating from an emotional lower place because they see black and all they see is, bad juju. But when I was going to school in the 90s, I ran across and encountered a lot of situations like that. And sometimes I had to whoop those motherfucking niggas' asses. And I'm not really big on physical violence. I'm not really like that. I will fight if I have to, but I'm not really a physically violent person. But if I have to, I will. And the reason I'm not a physically violent person is because I am not a savage. I am not an uncivilized, unstable person like some people are. I'm not into violence. Not into that. I'm not into nor do I get pleasure out of destroying people's lives unless they did something to me. Now, if you're an enemy, that's something totally different. But just to go around trying to destroy other people and tear other people down. But I went to school with a lot of people, my peers, who were like that. And yes, they were black. Yes, they were black. I went to school with a lot of people like those dudes on that train who were fucking with people for no reason, harassing people, bullying people. They tried to bully me and it never worked out for them. Never worked out for them. And it wasn't just men who acted like this, it was the girls too. It wasn't just men, it was the black girls too. It wasn't just the men. I remember there was a guy, his name was Robert. He couldn't have been no more than 5'2". It's always these short dudes. I don't get it. He and I became bitter enemies all because he was sitting behind me and he kept kicking my chair. And I asked him, could you please take your foot off of my chair? Could you stop kicking my chair? I turned around and asked him, and ever since then, well, at that time when I was in school, it was a war between he and I. He was supposed to be this big tough guy, right? Only 5'2", 5'1". So he tried to, he wanted to, but it didn't work out like that. Because remember, I'm covered by grace and I'm protected by the Spirit. And the Spirit already knew that me going into that school, that particular school, Shaw Junior High, which was it was an inner city school. It was very violent, full of very interesting specimens, people who did not come from an upper echelon like I did. He tried to have me jumped. I didn't know anybody in that school. I was only 13 years old. I didn't know anybody in that school. He tried to have me jumped, but ultimately it didn't work out. He didn't have me jumped. But my entire time at that school, I was fighting people off of me, verbally and physically. Because these people that were the students, my peers, they were like vultures. So it doesn't surprise me when I hear people say that they're never held accountable. You're right. Those types of people, society never holds them accountable. They try to help them and rehabilitate them. They never hold them accountable. The mere fact that those young men were able to do what they did on that train, and no one, it was only another woman that said anything to them, but no one held them accountable. It goes to show you who they hold. They pick and choose who they want to hold accountable in this culture and society. They only want to hold people accountable who they feel have some light about them. when they come from a place of light. When you come from a place of darkness, like those men on that, like those boys on that train, when you come from a place of darkness like that, they're not going to hold you accountable, because a lot of the people who are supposed to hold you accountable, like the law, they come from places of darkness as well. They want us to adjust to that type of behavior. So it's not about black people. People need to get out of that bullshit of black and white and race. That is the trap. You need to start looking at people as spiritual beings and start looking at this as a spiritual warfare, not in terms of Christian and all that. This ain't no Christian channel. So this is that's what you're looking for, get the fuck on. It ain't about that. This is bigger than that. Grow up. Time to grow up. This is a spiritual warfare. This is spell work to remove and replace the real boule people who are supposed to be in certain statuses and positions, and replace them with ghetto ratchet people. Just like I was telling you, Joan Collins was saying that the glamour and the class has disappeared from the movie and the television industry. And she's absolutely right. There are no more Joan Collinses. There are no more Diane Carrolls or Linda Evans, or, I've been watching Dynasty lately, going back watching Dynasty. And I have an appreciation for that time in history, because no matter what, at least those people had some semblance of class and sophistication that is lacking now. I mean, who are we supposed, what, Kim Kardashian? No. No. So that's what's happening. That is what is going on. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with black people not being held accountable. They hold black people accountable who they want to tear down, especially if they can see that you have some light frequency about you, or that you come from a realm of light. If they see that, and even if they're other black people, they will try to tear you down. Those types of young men that was on that train, and I hate even calling them young men, but those types of young men on that train, they would do the same thing to me or any other black person if we were on that train in that position too. It had nothing to do with her being Asian. There was no Asian hate in that. They are just hateful, low vibrating people. That's all that is. They are low class, low vibrating people. And 9 times out of 10, their parents probably got good jobs. They probably live in the suburbs. Because that is what is infecting our culture. They have removed and killed off the upper echelon types of black people. They've killed them off, or they have relegated them to poorer circumstances by design. They will lock doors, shut you out of opportunities, and make you do things the harder way. And listen, let me backtrack a little bit. Personal accountability and personal responsibility, I'm all for that. But I'm looking at the world, and I'm looking at the people who are put in positions. I was listening to someone saying that the people who are in positions of power now, they are very poor leaders. We can look around the country, right here in DC, for example. Muriel Bowser. She's supposed to be the mayor of DC, and DC is worse than ever. Poor leadership. That's a prime example of what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about blaming people for your personal problems or blaming people for your problems. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about looking at the world for what is really happening in the world. And what happened on that train is a prime example of what I'm talking about. But those comments is what sparked this conversation. Black people are held accountable. Those types of black people don't get held accountable. Just like that guy that jumped over the bench and attacked that judge. Number one, he should have never been able to get close to that judge, in my opinion. Number two, people keep saying that he has mental illness. Well, if he's mentally ill, right? How come he was not in a mental institution? And I'm not giving no medical advice, but I'm speaking for the protection of the public. Why wasn't he in a mental institution? No, what they do instead is this, and they do this for violent drug addicts. They do this for violent offenders. This is what they've done. Well, being on drugs now that's a disability. So what we're going to do is if you go into a rehab for 6 months and you're clean for 6 months, we'll look for housing for you. We'll look for food stamps for you. We'll get you on Medicaid and we'll give you Section 8 and we'll put you up in a place. This is what they do for drug addicts, men and women. This is what they do. And some of these people don't even have no children, and they'll do this for them. I've seen it. Well, we'll put you in housing. We'll get you on a disability check because, being a crackhead is a disability. That's a disability. And I'm not debating I'm not saying that it's not one, but I'm just telling you how it goes. So they put them in rehab. They stay in there for 6 months. They agree to be clean, of course, because they have no choice. Then they come out. They tell them enough of what they want to hear. Their counselors and sponsors. They tell them enough of what they want to hear. And then as soon as they get out, they start smoking crack again. Then they put them in apartment buildings, give them vouchers, put them in apartment buildings, put them in certain neighborhoods. They start smoking crack again, having drug dealers come into the neighborhood, attracting all types of negative energy to the neighborhood. You're telling management about these people. You're telling the police about these people, but nothing ever gets done because it's a disability. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about right there. They don't hold those types of people accountable anymore. Because at one time, crackheads had to stay in their own they had to stay in their own world. But the problem is they've allowed them to integrate into places where truthfully, they don't fucking fit in and they don't belong. I don't want to live around no crackheads. Period. I don't want to be around no crackhead. If you on crack, I don't want to know. And if that offends somebody out there, then unsub. I'm just telling the truth. I understand. Let me be clear. I know that there are people that have had substance abuse problems who are very good people and they don't fuck with people and they don't harass people and they stay to themselves and whatever they do to themselves. They don't go around trying to make things more difficult or harm other people. So we're not talking about them. We're talking about responsibility and how people are always talking about this group never gets held accountable, but that group does get held accountable. The ones who are more decent people who have to combat this type of shit. No, the ones who don't get held accountable are the ones who were in that video harassing that young woman on the train. And people can say, well, it's home training and all of that, but it's only but so much you can fault the parents for. Because even Maya Angelou said that not a lot, but she made a comment one time that the responsibility lies with the child or the person as well. Because people know at a certain age, you know right from wrong. You know right from wrong. And that goes for me too. At a certain age, you know right from wrong. I've made mistakes. I've done things too. And I just have to learn to forgive myself for it. And hopefully the person will understand that maybe I wasn't in my right frequency at the time. We all go through things. But the problem with a lot of these people, like those men in that video, on that train thing, the problem with people like that is that they grow up to be men 25, 30, 40, 50 fucking years old, and they're still doing the same thing. That goes for women too. They grow up to be 25, 30, 40, 50 fucking years old, and they doing the same exact bullshit that they were doing when they was fucking 13. That is the problem. And they never get held accountable for it. They never take any responsibility for it. Because society coddles people like that. Because people like that is the entertainment. They're the entertainment. But when a normal civilized person, that's just like people who report people online for harassing them, for stalking them. You go and fill out the IC3 report. And what happens? Absolutely nothing. They have these protocols in place. They have all of these things in place, but they do absolutely nothing to go after the people who are perpetrating these crimes against people. They don't do anything to them because they don't expect them to be held accountable. But they want us, the workers of light, the civilized people, they want us to be responsible and be held accountable for everything and to understand and be understanding towards shit like that happened on that fucking train. They want us to be responsible for that. Well, you got to understand, they might be going through something. I don't give a fuck what I was going through. I have been beaten. I've almost lost my life. In my mind, I've almost died. But by grace, I'm still here. And by grace, I never went out and did the malicious things that some of these people have done. Not saying that I have not done anything that was not wrong or I have not wronged anybody, because I have. Because we're human and we are predisposed to human error. But the difference between me and these other people is that I have a conscience. They don't have a conscience. And I know a lot of people don't like people saying that about some black people, but some black people don't have a conscience. They don't. But the ones that don't have a conscience, those are the ones that they mollycoddle. Those are the ones they put in certain positions. And those are the ones, if you notice, that they allow doors to open up for more, for opportunities and stuff like that. Have you ever gone to any government agency and you get the worst black representative or secretary? They got a bunch of attitude. They're ghetto. They're nasty. I remember years ago when I called this office. I was a teenager then when I was going through a lot of stuff. I was in therapy, for depression and stuff like that. This was back when I was a teenager, when I was really crazy, and I had a lot of anger issues and stuff like that. And my therapist that I was seeing at the time, she said that, and I didn't even know, it was some girl that worked at the office. I think her name was Shatasha or some shit like that. And I didn't even know this girl. I didn't even know her. I was not on a first name basis with the people who's at the office that I called, And my therapist gonna say to me, and make sure you be nice to Shatasha. She's been through a lot. And I wanted to say, bitch, so have I. So have the other people that call that office been through a lot. Why? I didn't even know this Shatasha person. But evidently, Shatasha must have told my therapist that when I call, sometimes I get upset or something like that, which was not true. See, they'll lie on you too. She told my therapist something about me that was not true. But that's what they do. They mollycoddle people like that. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, if you're a ghetto ratchet person who lacks a conscience, who does the shit that these individuals did on that Boston train, if you do things like that, they mollycoddle you, excuse me, they uplift you, and they make sure doors are open for you. Why should I be nice to somebody? And being nice is subjective. Why should I give energy to someone who obviously doesn't like me anyway? You're working a job. I'm calling a business that's not even yours. Now, this was many years ago, but it's just one example of the many things I faced and how I know that they put these parvenus in position and in place to take over the real boule energy. Why should I be nice to her? That was an attempt to humiliate me and to drag me down and to beat me down and to uplift her. They've done this in my family too. Family members do this shit too. So, correction to those people in the comment section of that video. Black people are held accountable. It's just the black people that you want to be held accountable, they don't hold them accountable. So get it together. Straighten it up, Buttercup, and understand some things. And I'm not trying to be smart or disrespectful, but I want people to understand there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy war going on, and that's a spiritual war. And people need to understand that. Anyway, this is the Occult View, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.